As darkness fell upon the abandoned pizza restaurant, I nervously pulled up to the entrance. It was my first night working as the security guard at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, and I had heard some unsettling rumors about the place. But being low on funds, I desperately needed this job. Unlocking the front door, I stepped inside, feeling a chill run down my spine. The air was musty and the atmosphere was eerie. I made my way to the security office where I would spend the night monitoring the cameras. As I settled into my chair, I noticed the creepy animatronic characters filling the room. Freddy Fazbear, Chica the Chicken, and Bonnie the Bunny stared back at me with their lifeless, glassy eyes. They seemed innocent enough, but there was something about them that sent shivers down my spine. I glanced at the camera feeds, constantly switching between the rooms. Everything seemed normal until suddenly, the screen flickered. My heart skipped a beat, but I brushed it off as a glitch. However, as the night progressed, the animatronics began to move. I watched in horror as Freddy Fazbear disappeared from the stage, only to reappear in the dining area. Chica and Bonnie followed suit, their movements becoming more erratic with each passing hour. I could feel the panic rising within me. Desperate to survive, I focused on the cameras, trying to predict the animatronics' next moves. They seemed to be getting closer and closer to the security office, their intentions unknown. Sweat dripped down my forehead as I clutched the security camera controls in my hands. With each passing hour, the animatronics' movements became more sinister. Their eyes glowed in the darkness, their haunting gazes locked onto me. I could hear their mechanical footsteps getting louder, their heavy breathing echoing through the halls. As dawn approached, I could finally see the light at the end of the tunnel. I had survived the night, barely. Exhausted and trembling, I sighed with relief as the sun slowly rose, casting its warm rays into the room. Stepping outside, I gazed back at the restaurant, knowing I could never return. The horrors I had witnessed would forever haunt my dreams. But as I drove away, I couldn't help but wonder what secrets lay hidden within the walls of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. That night marked the beginning of a long and terrifying journey, one I would never forget. The nightmare of 5 nights at Freddy's had become my reality, and I feared what awaited me in the nights to come. As the sun began to set, Mark anxiously walked towards the entrance of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. It was his second night as the night guard, and the uneasy feeling in his gut only grew stronger. He had heard the rumors about strange happenings at this place, but he needed the job. Entering the dimly lit building, Mark made his way to the security office. The room was filled with screens displaying the various cameras spread throughout the establishment. The animatronics, once lively and cheerful, were now lifeless and haunting. Mark shuddered at the sight. As the clock struck midnight, Mark's heart raced. He knew he had to stay vigilant. He glanced at the security cameras, observing the animatronics' movements. Everything seemed normal at first, but soon he noticed something peculiar. One of the cameras showed Bonnie, the animatronic bunny, moving closer to the office. Mark's palms grew sweaty. He quickly switched to the camera in the hallway. Bonnie was standing right outside the door, staring directly into the camera with its lifeless eyes. Fear gripped Mark as he struggled to come up with a plan. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed through the hallways. Freddy Fazbear, the main attraction, was on the move. Mark hastily changed the camera feed to locate Freddy. But as he did, Chica, the animatronic chicken, appeared right outside the security office door. Mark froze, unable to move or think. Chica's beady eyes seemed to pierce through his very soul. He had to act quickly. Just as Chica's hand reached for the door handle, Mark slammed the door shut and locked it. He let out a sigh of relief, but knew that his night was far from over. He needed to keep an eye on Freddy, Bonnie, and Chica. Hours passed, and Mark's nerves were on edge. The animatronics continued their relentless pursuit. They would vanish from one camera, and suddenly appear on another. Mark had to strategize their movements and keep them at bay. Finally, as dawn approached, The animatronics returned to their designated spots, freezing in their lifeless poses. Mark's body sagged with relief. He had made it through the second night. Leaving the security office, Mark stepped out into the light of day. He knew that tonight, and many more nights to come, he would have to face the same terrors. But he was determined to uncover the mysteries of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, no matter the cost. As he walked away from the restaurant, Mark couldn't shake off the feeling that he was being watched. The animatronics may have returned to their places, but their eyes seemed to follow him, forever haunting his every step. I woke up groggily, the events of the past 2 nights still fresh in my mind. Working at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza as a night guard was turning out to be a nightmare. The animatronics, which were supposed to entertain the children during the day, seemed to have a different agenda at night. As I entered the security office, I could feel my heart pounding. I knew what they were capable of now. Their mechanical movements, their dead eyes. It was all too haunting. But I had a job to do. Quitting was not an option. I had to survive tonight, despite the fear that crippled me. The clock struck midnight, signaling the start of another long and eerie night. I looked through the security cameras, checking each room, trying to anticipate the animatronics' movements. Foxy was still in Pirate's Cove, staring directly into the camera with that menacing grin. The sight sent shivers down my spine. Suddenly, the camera feed glitched and switched to the show stage. Freddy Fazbear, the main attraction, seemed to be glancing directly at the camera, even though his programming should have prevented it. I gulped, feeling the weight of his gaze on me. As the hours passed, I became more and more paranoid. Every sound, every creak of the floorboard sent me into a state of panic. The animatronics' movements were becoming even more unpredictable. Bonnie disappeared from the stage, Chica lurked in the kitchen, and I could hear some kind of mechanical scraping coming from the vents. I took a deep breath, trying to gather my nerves. Suddenly, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed throughout the pizzeria. I instinctively checked the cameras, and there he was, Freddy Fazbear, not on the stage, but right outside the security office. I scrambled to close the door, desperately trying to keep him out. The power ran low, and the door automatically creaked open. My heart raced as Freddy slowly approached me. His eyes glowed with a sickening yellow hue, his jaw hanging loose. I closed my eyes, waiting for the inevitable attack. But to my surprise, the sound of children's laughter filled the room. I gingerly opened my eyes to find Freddy Fazbear back on the stage, as if nothing had happened. It was 6 a.m. The night was finally over. As I stumbled out of the security office and into the sunlight, I couldn't help but feel relief wash over me. The nightmare was over for now. But deep down, I knew that the terror would continue, night after night. Surviving 5 nights at Freddy's was a challenge I wasn't sure I was ready for, but quitting was not an option. I had to face my fears, night after night, until I managed to uncover the secrets that lurked within Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. As the night guard sat inside the dimly lit office at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, his heart raced with anticipation. It was day 4 of his job at the notorious entertainment establishment, 5 Nights at Freddy's. He had heard the rumors and the chilling tales of animatronic characters coming to life at night. And now, it was his turn to witness the truth firsthand. The night started quietly, with only the sound of the ticking clock echoing through the room. The guard remained vigilant, his eyes fixed on the security camera feeds. He observed Freddy Fazbear, Bonnie the Bunny, and Chica the Chicken, all seemingly lifeless as they stood on the stage in the main dining area. Hours passed, and the guard's nerves grew more frayed with each passing minute. The animatronics had yet to show any signs of movement. Perhaps the stories were just that, stories. But just as the guard's confidence began to rise, the cameras flickered and went out. Panic rushed through his veins. He scrambled to reboot the system, fearing the worst. Once the cameras came back online, he gasped at what he saw. The animatronics were no longer on the stage. They had moved. Freddy Fazbear stood just outside the office door, his eyes fixated on the guard. Bonnie and Chica were nowhere to be seen. Fear consumed the guard as he realized there was no escape. He glanced at the security monitor to find Bonnie staring directly into the camera, a sinister smile spreading across its face. Chica appeared on another camera, her technicolor feathers seeming to ruffle with a life of their own. The night guard's heart pounded in his chest as he desperately tried to formulate a plan of action. He knew that his only chance of survival was to remain calm and collected. With a trembling hand, he reached for the office door, ready to face the nightmare that awaited him. As the door creaked open, he was met with screeching animatronics, their mechanical jaws gnashing menacingly. In a split-second decision, the guard bolted towards an adjacent doorway, hoping to find sanctuary. With a surge of adrenaline, he sprinted down the corridors, each corner he turned revealing new horrors. He could hear the thumping of animatronic footsteps growing closer, their twisted laughter echoing through the empty building. Just as he was about to lose all hope, the first rays of dawn began to peek through the windows. The animatronics halted, their movements freezing as if controlled by an unseen force. The guard stumbled to a halt, his breath ragged, but relief washing over him. As daylight flooded through the windows, the animatronics returned to their designated spots on the stage, their lifeless expressions once again on display. The night guard collapsed to the ground, his mind reeling from the night's events. He had survived the fourth night at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, but at what cost? He knew that the next night would bring a new wave of horror. He was unsure if he had the strength to endure it. So the sun rose on a new day, leaving the night guard to contemplate his options. Would he brave another night within the walls of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza? Or would he finally succumb to the terror that lurked within? The answer was yet to be decided. Stared at the clock, my heart pounding in my chest. It was the fifth and final night at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. I had made it this far, surviving the animatronic horrors that lurked within the restaurant. But tonight would be the ultimate test of my will. As the night guard, I had learned the hard way that these animatronics weren't just a bunch of harmless robots. They were possessed by malevolent spirits, seeking revenge for their tragic past. The thought sent shivers down my spine. I glanced at the surveillance cameras, watching as the animatronics moved restlessly around the dimly lit rooms. Foxy was lurking in Pirate Cove, his eyeless gaze fixed on me. Chica was in the kitchen, banging pots and pans together. But Freddy was nowhere to be seen. The phone rang, making me jump. It was the phone guy, my guide through this nightmare. His voice trembled with fear as he told me that the animatronics were becoming increasingly aggressive. He warned me that Freddy himself would start hunting me down tonight. I took a deep breath and fortified my resolve. I couldn't let fear consume me. I had survived 4 nights already. I would survive this one too. I checked the control panel, making sure the doors were securely locked. But as I watched the power slowly drain, panic set in. The clock struck midnight, and the animatronics sprang to life. Bonnie appeared at my door, his hollow eyes glistening in the dim light. I quickly closed the door, hearing him scratch and claw against the metal. The sound made my skin crawl. A sudden knock echoed from the other side of the room. My heart stopped as I realized it was Freddy. His laughter filled the air, sending chills down my spine. I knew I couldn't keep the door closed forever. I had to conserve power. The minutes ticked by, agonizingly slow. The power was draining. I felt like a sitting duck. Suddenly, an idea sparked in my mind. Maybe I could distract them somehow. I grabbed the spare Freddy Fazbear mascot costume from the supply closet and put it on. As I stood there, in the disguise of their fallen leader, the animatronics seemed momentarily confused. They stared at me, their mechanical eyes flickering with uncertainty. It bought me precious seconds. I carefully made my way towards the exit, keeping my movements slow and deliberate. As I neared the door, Foxy's red eyes locked with mine. I held my breath, praying that my disguise would hold. With a final menacing screech, Foxy turned away and resumed his position in Pirate Cove. I let out a sigh of relief. I knew my ordeal wasn't over yet. I still had to escape the building. I tiptoed my way through the darkened hallways, avoiding any potential encounters. Finally, I reached the exit and pushed the heavy door open. The cool night air washed over me, bringing a sense of freedom and relief. As I walked away from Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, I knew I would never forget the terrors I had faced within those walls. I also knew that I had triumphed over them. I had survived 5 nights at Freddy's, and nothing could ever scare me as much as that again. And so, as I left the nightmare behind, I couldn't help but smile. I was a survivor, and I would carry that badge proudly for the rest of my life.